Thanks for watching the video. This is Pascal for EMP Reviews. This is a review of the first Doctor Strange movie from 2016. The first part is a synopsis of the plot, and the review will start at the time posted right here. The opening scene occurs at the Carmartage Monastery Library. Caecilius and his followers infiltrate the establishment, kill the librarian, and steal pages from the Book of Cagliostro. They are caught in the act and pursued by the Ancient One, who kills a few of them. Caecilius and the rest get away with the parchments. In the next scene at Metro General Hospital, through arrogance, seemingly recklessness, and incredible skill, Dr. Stephen Strange saves a patient by removing a bullet from his brain, embarrassing another physician in the process. That night, on the way to deliver a presentation at a neurological dinner, he diverts his attention from driving and has a catastrophic accident, severely damaging his hands. For an extended period of time in the plot, Strange obsesses on repairing his hands through risky operations, 7 in total, and physical therapy. His coach mentions a previous patient, Jonathan Pangborn, and his severe back injury, who was wheelchair-bound, as someone who seemingly had a miraculous recovery, and thus someone Strange should use as inspiration. Pangborn regained full mobility as he was eventually seen out in public by the therapist walking normally. Stephen's obsession ultimately drives his close friend Dr. Christine Palmer away. He finds Pangborn, who informs him that his healing was delivered at Carmartage. During his stay there, Jonathan actually sought an elevation for his intellect, having given up on his body. But he left the mystical center once his injuries were repaired and walked away from more opportunities for his intelligence and wisdom. In search of this temple, Strange goes to Nepal. He is rescued by Baron Mordo from Morgus, who takes him to Carmartage, where he meets the Ancient One. She introduces him to the astral dimensions and ejects him from the sanctuary, fearing that educating someone with such arrogance would lead to another zealot like Caecilius. Mordo convinces her otherwise, seeing that an additional member to their order, especially Strange, is beneficial for the very possible upcoming conflicts with Caecilius and his followers. The lessons begin. Eventually, Stephen meets Wong, the guardian of the library, who apparently has no sense of humor, a fact amplified by his detailing of the fate of the previous custodian. Strange looks at the book Caecilius damaged and notices the missing pages. Elsewhere, Caecilius casts a spell using one of the stolen pages and makes brief contact with the demon Dormammu. Strange struggles with creating portals and is educated on how his injuries have nothing to do with this limitation. The Ancient One puts him through a swim or sink type of test, which prompts him to finally learn the skill. This exercise seems to be very effective, as Stephen learns at an impressive rate and begins to invoke many acts of magic. The Ancient One introduces him to the Mirror Dimension, an infinite area unaffected by what happens in the real world, and an area used to contain threats. Later, Mordo describes the dark history of Caecilius, coming to the temple as a broken man to eventually someone whose pride made him question the Ancient One and her teachings, and finally leaving the sanctuary with his followers. Mordo then aggressively makes Strange aware that his life, while involved with Kamar-Taj, may be in danger during the very possible upcoming conflicts. Strange continues his rapid advancement with his uses of magic to the point of recklessness. He uses the Eye of Agamotto to alter the effects of time to repair the Book of Cagliostro. Before Mordo and Wong intervene, he discovers that the newly replaced pages describe Dormammu and his dark dimension, which gives eternal life. The ensuing conversation leads the men to discuss the very purpose of the members of Kamar-Taj, to protect the world from mystical threats. The Ancient One is one in a long line of protectors going back thousands of years to the father of the mystical arts, Agamotto. He created the other sanctums in London, New York, and Hong Kong. Together, they protect the world with a global mystical shield against, among other forces, Dormammu. Magical doorways to these locations are situated in the room Wong delivers this explanation. Dormammu wants to bring all worlds into his dark dimension. The stolen pages contain rituals to contact this demon and draw power from his realm. Strange declares that he wants out of this situation, since his hands were the only reason he came to this sanctum, but is interrupted by an attack by Caecilius, coming through the doorway to the London temple, completely destroying it. The explosion sends Strange flying through the doorway leading to the New York sanctum. He finds a rotunda of gateways and then comes across the Cloak of Levitation. He then witnesses Caecilius and his followers severely injuring the keeper of this temple, Daniel, who then all attack Strange. He uses the gateways to get rid of some of these villains, leaving him to fight their leader alone. During this brawl, the cloak is released from its case and not only defends Strange, but drapes itself onto him, enabling him to defy gravity. Furthermore, it guides him to trap his opponent using a set of mystical shackles. Caecilius cites his devotion to Dormammu and how the world would benefit by being delivered to his dimension. He also reveals some of the deceits kept by the Ancient one being that she keeps the real magic to herself, giving her the ability for long life. Dormammu, however, gives this magical ability freely. Using Strange's sling ring, which she lost during the previous fight, one of the followers returns to the sanctum and launches a mystical spear right into Stephen's chest. The cloak diverts the cultist's attention, while the severely injured Strange transports himself back to Metro General Hospital to Christine. With help from his astral body, understandably shocked by his apparition, she is assisted in reviving him. His assailant's astral body shows up for another conflict, and together, Strange and Christine manage to kill him. Stephen apologizes for his earlier behaviors, summarizes his outer-worldly adventures to a skeptical response, and returns to the New York sanctuary using a very convincing portal. He comes across Mordo and the Ancient One and reports to them that Caecilius can now fold space and matter at will in the real world, outside of the mirror dimension. As the London sanctuary is destroyed and Strange repelled the attack here in the New York sanctum, and that its keeper Daniel is severely injured, the Ancient One attempts to promote Strange as its new keeper, much to his objections, citing his only desire for medicine. During this debate, the Ancient One describes that this occupation was only as a result of his ego in the form of controlling death when conducting treatment. Strange responds by bringing up Dormammu, who also controls death, as an attack against her secret that she feeds from him in order to live for as long as she has. She then leaves the two men. Caecilius and his followers return, and he attempts to destroy this sanctum as he did with London. Strange transports everyone to the mirror dimension, preventing the explosive spell from damaging the temple. In this realm, however, Caecilius' power, which is fed from the dark dimension, makes him more powerful. The Ancient One appears and Mordo finally sees that she does feed herself from Dormammu's dimension, an act that she described to all her students as being forbidden. Caecilius again discusses her lies and praises the demon he worships. Another fight ensues and the Ancient One falls, literally. Strange rushes her to Christine. He and the Ancient One have one last astral conversation where she again tries to diminish his ego. Strange excelled only because of his fear of failure, not a desire for success. Pangborn draws dimensional energy straight into his body, resulting in an effect of being healed to walk, a deliberate choice that meant leaving behind a greater existence of mystical work. The same choice is available to Strange. Regain full range of his hands and leave behind a greater mystical purpose and intelligence. The Ancient One made a similar choice to draw power from the Dark Dimension in order to serve the greater good. In Hong Kong, Wong and his troops ready themselves for Caecilius, while in New York, Strange tries to taper Mordo's anger for feeling betrayed. He blames the lies of the Ancient One as the cause for Caecilius and his followers to reach for Dormammu in the first place. Strange pleads for his help against these zealots, and eventually Mordo agrees. Once they arrive in China, the Dark Dimension has already appeared. Strange again alters time, and as a result, the battle against Caecilius and his followers occurs while events all around are progressing backwards. However, Caecilius stops time altogether, and Strange abandons the fight to confront Dormammu directly. Again, with time manipulation, he traps Dormammu in a loop, threatening to maintain the effect for as long as necessary unless he disappears with Caecilius and his followers. Reluctantly, the demon agrees and departs. Mordo is angered at the breaking of another fundamental law, this time by Stephen, the same way that the Ancient One committed this sin. He walks away from Strange and Wong. Strange places the eye of Agamotto back at Camartage, identified as an Infinity Stone by Wong. The first post-credit scene paves the way for Thor Ragnarok, while the other shows Mordo brutally reclaiming power from Pangborn, leaving him disabled. Okay, thanks for watching the video. Today I'm doing a review of Doctor Strange, the first film from 2016, with my friend Will Burton. And say a little bit about yourself, Will. What is your connection with Doctor Strange and comic books in general?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know from Doctor Strange, I mean, I'm not a big Doctor Strange fan. I mean, I remember seeing him in cameo appearances from Spider-Man the Animated Series, and know a lot of his villains showed up, like Baron Mordo and Dormammu. But yeah, I mean, I've been wanting to see this movie for like forever, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that came up, like I was more so interested in Civil War and Thor, and then the DC movies at the time, but I never quite got around to seeing Doctor Strange. But overall, I mean, I've been hearing like the effects are good, but by the time I did watch it, I did enjoy the effects, because it was always like watching an Inception movie, with the way the buildings turn and the patterns, and you kind of get lost and in the moment. Like, you can almost feel like what the characters are kind of going through as they were like, their minds are going in and out, or as they were fighting. So it was intense. Yeah,
it's basically Inception, but Inception on crack, basically. You know, they just took all the environment bending kind of dream aspect of it and went further into it, which was really cool to see. One thing that I thought was kind of bizarre was at the time the movie came out, my coworker and I were talking about it. She went to see it with her son, and she said her son and her were disappointed because they expected just another I don't want to use the term average, but they wanted another superhero Marvel film, and instead they got something filled with magic and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's great, but I don't know, for some reason she didn't like it that much. But anyway, to me that's a selling point. But in any case, okay, so I got a few topics I want to discuss about the first film. So my first impression was that, like Thor, like the first Thor movie, I was really shocked to see that such an unusual character like Doctor Strange was put on the big screen. It was done really well. It was not only was it done really well, and the special effects were really done well, and obviously the Marvel Studios have they have access to like a top-notch special effects house, so those guys obviously know what they're doing. So so it was really impressive, and also the other benefit to it, and I can't remember, maybe it was Looper, I can't remember what other YouTube channel mentioned this. Part of the Doctor Strange film is also, it's a martial arts movie.
Oh yeah,
which is great.
Yeah, because the martial arts was really it was very well choreographed, and and that's what I feel like that's what makes the show a little bit more, the movie a little bit more unique than the actual comic, because, like I said, I'm not too well versed with the Doctor Strange comics, but I know most of it is the mystic arts, but they kind of added the martial arts element just to kind of make it a little bit more fun and interesting, for sure. Yeah.
And I think I see that's the problem. I'm not familiar with the comic book myself too, but there might have been some in the comic books, and I'm only guessing on that. I'll do research on it and I'll put some caption in the video, but I'm guessing there might be some connection to martial arts because of the original character of the Ancient One, which seems to be I believe it's a Tibetan character, and perhaps because of that there was some martial arts in the comic, but like I said, I'll have to look that up and I'll put a caption once I put the video together, and if I'm completely wrong, and I'll just put wrong on it and stuff, I've had to do that with other videos when like Ernest said something completely wrong about when a movie comes out, and I put the right date underneath it and stuff like that. So anyway, so starting off at the beginning of the movie, I didn't see any reason for the beheading of the custodian at the library. I don't know why that was a necessary thing. It didn't seem necessary to me, because they came in there, they strung him up, they cut off his head, and it fell into that little container, and then they just took the book. I'll look at the movie again, but I don't see a if it was portrayed in the movie as something necessary, I might have missed it. Did you catch any reason why that seemed necessary?
I just feel like they just want to show, like, I guess this is a lethal. The followers of Dormammu are just very lethal. Like I forget the name of what they're called, or what
just Caecilius.
Caecilius. Okay,
you mean it was just to show how evil they are?
Yeah, like how cunning or ruthless. It's just they're
just villains. Yeah,
I
mean it's the thing that comes to mind is, like, because I don't know if you saw Blade Runner 2049, but for a while when I started watching the movie more than once because I really liked it a lot, the scene where the villain like he has like a new model of replicant is born, and he just kills her, and he has a long diatribe before he does this, and I'm like, okay, I know the guy is a villain, you don't have to oversell it, and this is kind of like what it felt like. They cut this guy's head off, and it just didn't seem like it was very necessary. But anyway,
it kind of brings me back to actually like the first Avengers movie when Loki went to the I guess when they were, before he got into a fight with, when he was using the scepter, he was just killing everybody, but there was this one cut off scene where it looked like he screwed somebody's head off with the scepter.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of gruesome. It was too gruesome to kind of show it. They can't show it on screen. They have to show it off screen.
Oh, okay.
They just want to show like how ruthless Loki, before he became the anti-hero, this guy,
like a lovable villain kind of thing, because the first Avenger, right? That's when
Be like between Thor, the first Thor up to Avengers to Dark World, I think. Like,
yeah, I'm trying to think what came first. I think Avengers came first, and then it was the Dark World, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was imprisoned in the Dark World, and my goodness, man, I tried watching that movie again, like maybe in November, and man, it sucks. Good Lord, I can't stand that movie. But anyway, so okay, so I thought, okay, I'm trying to think, because I thought this was too obvious to me that like what I'm just going talking about is the opening scene. Yeah, right after this event at the library, and Caecilius gets the pages, so they run off into the other dimension, and so the Ancient One's face is covered. I guess I think it seemed kind of too much for the audience, because why would she cover her face there? I mean, Caecilius knows who she is, and I know. And I mean, as far as the narrative is concerned, they should have just had the camera behind her, because obviously they were trying to cover her for the sake of the audience, and
right.
And this is probably being nitpicky, but I thought that was unnecessary. They could have just like they either had, anytime the camera was close to her, they should have just had the camera behind her, which is what they did at the end of that scene. She goes back to Earth. She's walking. She takes off the hood, and it's just behind her.
Right.
They should, and then of course the other option is also, if you want to do an action scene, then and her face could be visible, then you pull the camera away. So I don't know why they did all that.
It kind of reminded me of the Winter Soldier. They kind of cover up his they use the goggles to cover up his eyes and the face mask before he actually fought Captain America, to where he pulled his mask off and you realized it's Bucky.
Yeah, and that's exactly what that is, and it's for the narrative and it's for the audience. So it's a little bit of a nitpick, but whatever. Okay, let's see. So this was another complaint of mine until, because for this review I watched the movie like I was planning on watching it maybe once or twice, but I watched it 3 times because I like it, and it started to become one of those movies, and this is good. This is one of those movies like Inception and like Tenet. Well, with Tenet you have no choice. You can't watch that movie just once, but
right.
But with Doctor Strange, I started to pick up more things, and so I thought they were giving up too much of the other dimension and how it breaks the laws of physics. I thought they were giving away too much when they showed you that whole battle at the beginning. But once I watched it more than once, I realized that it's necessary, because you get to see Caecilius come in, grab the pages, have a kind of a small argument with the Ancient One, and you get to see that he's got followers. So as much as it seemed to be given away a little too much, it still seemed necessary, and eventually I embraced the fact that okay, it's given up a lot, but it makes sense in the story.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is a little embarrassing, because the concept of the fact that first off, for some reason I missed the fact, like when I first saw the movie some time ago, I missed the fact that her long life, because she's been living for centuries, is only available to her because she's tapping into Dormammu and the dark dimension.
Right.
For some stupid reason, I didn't make that connection. I got the connection that she was feeding from the dark dimension. I didn't know that it was providing her a long life. Did you catch that? Or?
It was kind of like revealed, like during the middle of the movie, where she had to save both Mordo, Baron Mordo, and Doctor Strange.
She had to come in there.
Yeah.
What happened before that whole battle was Doctor Strange confronted her about her feeding.
Well, right, because it didn't. Or Baron Mordo didn't take it, didn't believe Doctor Strange.
Yes, he didn't. He still thought, he called him a coward, and he's like, he he still didn't believe anything that she was saying. And then she left because, well, for one thing, she got caught, so she was uncomfortable. But she also left and she said, "I'm gonna go get more troops, because Casillas is coming." So that's when she came back, and then that's the thing too. Like it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong here. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but when she came down to fight Casillas, Mordo realized that she fed from the Dark Dimension, from what I could tell, only because of the emblem on her forehead.
Right. That's
what it dissipated. It didn't even stay there. Like I think, because I was watching it maybe 2 nights ago, I didn't realize this. Like when he said, "You are right. She's feeding herself from the Dark Dimension." So I noticed her emblem on her forehead, which is of course what Casillas and his followers have, because they're all into the Dark Dimension now.
Yeah.
But hers disappears. So, and maybe they did that because they wanted to, for the sake of the audience, they wanted to separate her a little bit from Casillas and the Dark Dimension, so they removed it. I don't know. And it's not like they were running out of money for the special effects. I mean, obviously that's not a problem.
Right.
So I don't know. I think that's the only reason I can think of as to why the emblem disappeared eventually.
Well, it's just to kind of show like shock value, like, oh, she's tapping into the dark energy.
Yeah.
So.
And another embarrassing thing is I didn't realize that. Okay, so when Wong, Mordo, and
Doctor Strange
and Stephen Strange were in the Kamar-Taj, and Wong is explaining to him the Dark Dimension and what Kamar-Taj is all about. So a guy comes in because the doorways are there. The doorway to Hong Kong, London, and New York are there. So the doorway from London opens up. A guy runs in because he's being chased by Casillas. He gets killed, and behind him, I kind of got this, but now it's definitely completely clear. Casillas destroys the London Sanctum. He puts his hand down, and there's a big explosion.
Oh yeah.
That explosion pushed Doctor Strange through the doorway to New York, and that's how he got into New York. Did you pick up on all that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Some of that was missed on me for some reason.
Although this is kind of off topic, but I kind of find this also cliche where you got cities like New York, Hong Kong, and London, because these are like world-class cities that people tend to know.
Well, I think what it is they're cities that if you're going to make a comic book and you want a certain amount of response to it, you can't do it in Springfield, Illinois.
Right. Or like when I saw the Justice League, like, yeah, they could have had the invasion in like Gotham City or Metropolis or major city.
Yeah.
But they had it in like Russia, where I can't remember what city in Russia, but it's a nice change of pace versus like
New York.
Same thing like an alien invasion. They go to Washington D.C.
Well, there's still if it's not near the Kremlin in Russia, it's still pretty major spot. And Washington is obviously, that's pretty big too. So so rarely, I think maybe in alternative comic books you're gonna get like Romeoville or something like that,
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're like, for one thing, DC is in Los Angeles.
They moved to Los Angeles.
Yes, and then Marvel's New York, obviously. So that's where their market is,
Yeah, when I saw the Transformers movies, I forgot if it was the third one, they invaded Chicago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they block off our streets and crap like that, So.
Yeah.
Okay,
back on topic, yeah.
And okay, so unlike, good Lord, okay, out of that phase, the comedy works from Iron Man to, well, I don't know, the Dark World. I gotta think about that again. But for the most part, when you were looking at Iron Man, well, I guess most of the Iron Man films and definitely the Captain America movies, for the most part, the comedy works, And now in the TV shows, I didn't care for it. In Black Widow, I didn't care for it. In Shang-Chi, I really didn't like it in there.
Well, the problem with Black Widow is like it's a bunch of man bashing humor or some
it's so bad. And then there's a part where the Black Widow's his partner, I can't remember what her name is, she's really cute, but she starts talking about
that's like her protege, her sister.
She starts talking about some medical thing, and it's supposed to gross out what's his face who played Hellboy. I can't remember the guy's name.
The dude that played
the British well, not British, but the Russian superhero was playing there. I can't remember
the Russian
the name.
Supposed to be like the Russian Captain.
Yeah, so that whole comedy thing didn't work. So for my point is, definitely 99% of the comedy in Doctor Strange 2016 works. It was funny, it was pretty cool and stuff, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the two of my favorites were like of course, the Wi-Fi password, and the Beyonce one.
Yeah. They
started listening to Beyonce. Yeah.
The one thing that was dumb though was when he, I think it was right after Christine revived him. I think that's when it was.
Oh yeah.
And he puts on the cape, and then the cape like starts slapping his face. That I can't imagine the director Derrickson. I can't imagine that was his idea. That might have been somebody's hands in there, because these Marvel movies, if you're the director, you're never just the director. Somebody else is putting their hands in there too, So
totally.
Okay, so my next note is special effects. I think we discussed that, and Inception. Okay, so I did have a problem with Dormammu. Nothing scary about him at all. I mean, it's a demon, and the Dark Dimension to me seemed a little too colorful, and maybe that's the Marvel formula,
Well, yeah. Well, what's funny is like Dormammu, like his face and color scheme kind of reminds me of Thanos-ish.
Yeah, it's vibrant. I guess tonally it fits. I guess it makes sense. I mean, Kamar-Taj had a lot of earth tones and everything, but I guess it fits with like the I just watched a little bit of the Infinity War. When right before Asgard was about to be destroyed. First of all, I'm pissed off beyond belief of what happened to Asgard. Asgard should have never gone off into a spaceship and be destroyed. That's such a I'm pissed off about that. But anyway, when Thanos and his goons are on Asgard, that whole scene, and he's fighting Hulk, there's a lot. Everything is vibrant. Everything's colorful. Like rarely in these movies, Captain Marvel. Rarely in these movies is there not a lot of color, But
that is one critique, though. I feel like with these MCU movies, it looks a little too oversaturated.
Well, that's my problem.
Yeah.
Because in addition to that, Dormammu looks like a piece of software. It looks like all the movements and everything. It looks overly computer generated. Because it's like. I liked the movie, and because I had the same problem with I love the movie Annihilation. Unfortunately, there seems to be a lot of woke stuff in there, but we don't need to discuss that now. But it's one of the weirdest monster villains, aliens you'll ever see. And of course, as beautiful as it is, and the music really sells how weird the whole scene is, but it's all a lot of weird movement, and it's all math. It's all animated stuff, So that kind of takes me away from the story, just because I know it's rendered,
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's kind of funny, and it's compared to the first Iron Man movie to the rest of the stuff. Like they are very CGI heavy, like because the first two Iron Man movies they use they actually kind of built like Iron Man suit, and then they use CGI.
That's a perfect example, because my favorite suit is the Mark II, the silver one. I like because first he had the real bulky one, and then the very first Iron Man suit, completed suit, there was the silver one. It's just silver with no colors. That's my favorite. Is the Mark II, I think. And then I know they built the third one for sure, as a prosthetic, and I think the second one, all three of those were probably built. Was it Stan Winston? Yeah, it was. I think And then the nanotechnology bullshit, man. I mean, that's ridiculous. And I know what it is. Because they did the same thing with Endgame, where all the suits they were wearing to go into time traveling, they just kind of like built themselves over them, and eventually they did the same thing with Black
Panther. Well,
Black
yeah.
Panther.
Well, actually, Black Panther is kind of like the biggest critique because it was the most CGI heavy, especially the fight between him and Killmonger. Like,
Okay.
that battle is like all it wasn't
It
because
didn't look real.
right because
Yeah.
the first Black Panther's first suit from Civil War looks real. Like they didn't use.
Supposedly, I think what I heard, I'll check, but I think what I heard in Civil War, every time he's on screen, it's rendered.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if they convinced you, at least there it's done well, But they never were able to do that with Captain America, which is cool. And then the nanotechnology with Iron Man is ridiculous. I mean, he's like off into a spaceship with Doctor Strange, and he's got plain clothes on because his suit just disappeared somewhere, And then it spewed out a solution that plugged a hole, Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that. At that point, it's magic, basically.
Well, I forget in the comics the nanotech he had. There's a name for that type of armor, but I just can't remember off the top.
Oh, so that was created in the comics?
Like I think one of the Mark suits he had it was actually
But
nanotechnology.
did it bleed on top of him the same way?
Bleed. I think it's called the bleeding armor. That's what the nanotechnology is.
So it was his skin, basically.
Yeah, the bleeding armor.
It was like the Terminator from the Terminator 2, basically. Like
Yeah,
liquid.
it's called the bleeding edge armor. That's where it took because.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah,
I thought it was something they made up for the movie. I guess
Nah,
not. Then.
because in late 2000s, early 2010s, Iron Man keeps improving his armor. So the one we saw in Infinity War, that was called.
Oh, they didn't come up with that. Okay.
Bleeding edge armor. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So my next point is another thing that seems forced is how Mordo basically becomes the next villain. His walking away from Wong, Doctor Strange, and Kamar-Taj at the end seemed a little bit forced. And then, of course, he goes and reclaims the power from Pangborn.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I mean, he's like too many sorcerers. That's what he says. And he doesn't like the fact that, Doctor Strange just broke one of the fundamental laws. I'm completely fine with him being upset at the Ancient One for lying to them about tapping into the Dark Dimension, because that was like basically rule number one. You don't tap into the Dark Dimension. And she's been doing it for centuries, But obviously, let's say I was in a story and I would be upset, but I will give him this. And I don't know, he didn't say this, but if you dive into the story, you could say eventually, with that much influence from the Dark Dimension, eventually God knows what that's going to do to your personality,
Well, as you mentioned, and I kind of forgot the quote he said, it's like he's just telling Strange, like, at some point the bill has to be due.
Yeah, and what does that mean exactly?
Like, let's just say, let me just use this analogy of, like, let's just say you ain't got no money to come up for the rent, but you got your credit card to use to pay for the rent. Like, you ain't got no cash to pay, so use your credit card to pay off the rent until.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Pay. In a sense like that, you ain't got the cash now, but you got credit to use it for later. But in return, you have to.
Okay, well, in that respect, what kind of payment should Pangborn be forced to give for having the power? I mean, what I can kind of entertain is the idea that if we get into Mordo's mind, and this is just fan theories and stuff, but it's unnatural for a guy who is injured, is not the other word for injured is disabled. Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I guess his motivation is that if you are disabled, whatever reason it is that you're disabled, it's essentially arrogance that you think you should have the right to steal power to make yourself better. And I guess that's what the movie's trying to tell you, is that he feels that that's unnatural, and you should not be able to do that. basically.
Well, you don't have the right to use magic to kind of make yourself functional.
Yeah,
be able to be, I guess, enjoy,
functional,
and embrace comfort. Yeah,
and I guess that's the natural law that he was complaining about. It just seems a little forced to me, but whatever.
Although I would say this was funny about Baron Mordo is like it's kind of like his backstory of like how they got it. Like I said, I'm not too well versed. I know he's like the Doctor Strange villain in the comics, and like he's just like his arch rival. But what reminds me is like he reminds me a bit of Sinestro from Green Lantern. Like Sinestro was actually a Green Lantern before he actually joined the Yellow Lantern.
Corpse or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that kind of reminds me like hey, he was part of the Force until he kind of gave in to he believed because the fear. Yeah.
The evil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this might lead into my next point, which is it's basically interesting how Pangborn and Strange have the same sort of dilemma. It's like it seems like what the movie constructs is the fact that if you have an injury, it seems like you can get it fixed, but by doing so, you can't continue with the mystical arts. It's either one or the other. You know, if you go into the mystical arts, your hands aren't going to get fixed because Doctor Strange's hands are still damaged. Yeah.
Right, because, well, initially in the movie, it's just as he keeps bringing it up, like, he never wants to be intended to be the Sorcerer Supreme. Like, you know, he wants to go back to being a doctor and help fix people. But what the Ancient One has told him is, like, you know, Strange, she kind of tapped and see a little bit in his future. Maybe it's because the Time Stone, maybe she used it, but she just think there's a higher calling beyond his purpose of being a doctor, because he is very egotistical, like in the beginning of the movie, all the way up to midway, he kind of
wakes up finally when she dies, basically. Yeah.
Right. So
because even at the conversation they have before she disappears, he still has arrogance in there too. She's like, dude, she's like, it's not about you, you know. But she does say again that he's got the options of going back to medicine, but she does say that one of the bad things about his activity in medicine is that it's driven by his fear of failure,
right.
not success. Success. And she says, she doesn't tell him this, but clearly she would prefer for him to go continue with the mystical arts, because clearly the day-to-day life is nothing compared to what's going on with other dimensions and the fight against the dark dimension and the mystical arts in general. So Pangborn had the same dilemma. Get your abilities fixed, but you won't. It doesn't seem like, I'm trying to think. Like for Pangborn, he was walking with the power, and it seemed more that it was his choice to stop work with Kamar-Taj and go back home. It didn't seem like it was a forced choice,
Right.
But, so and then it's similar with Doctor Strange, because like Wong said, we have no guarantee that if you stay with us that your hands are going to be fixed, which is kind of ironic considering the amount of amazing stuff we see him do.
Yeah,
they can. I mean, I guess he could maybe use a time stone to fix his hands, but who knows? They never explored that. But yeah, it seemed more like it was a self-imposed choice as opposed to what the magic has in store for them. It was kind of weird, but whatever. Okay, so another thing I caught, and this might be obvious, but I tend to miss things sometimes when I watch movies. I completely got the idea that Doctor Strange brought everybody into the mirror dimension when Caecilius came back in after the Ancient One left, and Mordo and him were arguing.
Oh yeah.
Caecilius comes in, and so then Mordo jumps in and starts beating the shit out of him. The followers grab Mordo and kind of push him off a little bit to the side, and Caecilius is about to initiate a spell. I didn't realize that he was going to blow up this sanctum, which is New York, the same way he did London, and the only reason that didn't happen is because Strange brought everybody into the mirrored dimension. I didn't realize that.
Wait, was it New York? I thought when they in the near finale they went to Hong Kong. It was
that happens after the Ancient One dies.
Oh, okay.
Now the scene after, right after Mordo and him argue, Caecilius comes in, and then Mordo starts fighting the followers, and then Caecilius raises his hands up and he's about to initiate a spell in that sanctum, New York sanctum, and then Strange brings him into the mirror dimension. So I didn't realize that. Like I said, he was about to explode New York, and the reason that didn't happen is because Strange brought him into the. I didn't catch that before. I mean, did you? That's when they ran off into the buildings and all that stuff. You know.
Right.
Yeah. So I didn't realize he was about to blow the place up. I didn't realize that. Did you catch that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's all of a sudden.
I knew it was going to do damage. I just didn't know it was destroying it.
Right. I mean, at the end, I mean, the one in New York, it kind of has to serve as his sanctuary because I think Doctor Strange is based out of New York City, so that's like a plot device.
I think so. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, so the one thing that was interesting is after the Ancient One's death. So for some stupid reason, I didn't realize again that the rubble that they were in. This is after Christine revives Strange and he goes back into the New York sanctum. So Mordo and Strange are standing in the remains of the New York sanctum. For some stupid reason, I didn't realize that Caecilius, after he killed the Ancient One, he went back and destroyed New York. He destroyed the New York sanctum.
Oh.
Yeah, so you didn't catch that either. Yeah, because when Strange came back and started talking to Mordo and tried to convince him to forgive the Ancient One, and then, okay, let's go. We gotta fight Caecilius. I didn't realize that they were standing in the remains of the New York sanctum. I totally missed that. But the dynamic there was cool because now that Mordo knows the truth, he's angered against the Ancient One. She realized that he was going to be like that because he's a rigid person.
Yeah.
And then Doctor Strange, all of a sudden, he's the one defending her, which was kind of cool. So they switched, dynamics, which was great. Okay, and then another thing I didn't realize is because of the time stone manipulation that Doctor Strange does, so he reverses time, he fixes the Hong Kong sanctum. And by doing that, he fixed the New York sanctum also. I didn't catch that either.
That's the part that got me confused. Because I was like, when him and Mordo was in that room.
And it's in rubble.
Yeah. Right, it's in rubble. I didn't know Caecilius destroyed the New York sanctum.
Yeah, I totally missed that. Right. So reversing time fixed that, which is great. Okay.
Although what I did find interesting is that Caecilius was not totally immune to the time stone when Doctor Strange was kind of going back in time.
Oh yeah, at first, because he was an inch away from stabbing him, and then he started walking backwards, and then because he's powerful enough to do it, he got out of the time loop and stuff, and it brought his followers. Now that's a thing that killed me too, though, because the Ancient One kills 3 of them at the beginning. He's got an army of people there, and at the end everybody's dead. He's got only 2 followers.
Yeah.
All of them got killed. It was and then also something that was kind of that is a major plot hole is at Hong Kong. Wong says he picks up a weapon and he says, "Okay, no one is going to attack the sanctum." And he's like, "No one." And he's looking at 12 people. What the fuck happened to all of them? No. I mean, you know what it is? That's what happened. Okay. Oh Jesus, they got killed. Okay, that's what happened. When the time was going backwards during the fight that Strange and Mordo had with Caecilius and those 2 followers, the time went back, and then some like cars were going backwards and
Right.
buildings were being rebuilt. Wong was like in one of those rubbles, and they said, "Holy cow, it's Wong!" So I think Casillas killed all of them. That's what it was, you know. And so that's probably another small plot hole, is when they discovered Wong, because of time going backwards. The rest of the Kamartaj followers should have been rescued also, but whatever. Okay, the thing that seemed this is a nitpick, but the thing that seemed a little ridiculous to me is that when he looked at the I don't know if I want to call them repairs to his hands or whatever when he was in the hospital, he says, "What did you guys do to my hands?" And it's like, dude, do you know what your hands looked like before? You know, and it seemed a little odd that he basically accused them of doing damage when it's like, dude, you were in a car accident. You're lucky to be alive. You know.
Maybe he had some form of amnesia, or
I think what it is just like the more of his arrogance, basically. I think that's what it was, basically. You know. So anyway, so okay, is there? Okay, I mentioned the number of people that died, both on Casillas, his group, and Kamataj. And so, unless there's something you want to discuss, we could just go into what you're rating for the first movie, 0 to 10.
I'll give it Doctor Strange an 8 out of 10. Like I said, here's what like I said, I like the effects. I thought the effects was really good.
Yeah.
You can always kind of get lost between almost like the time and space of things. But what I really like the most is like is the costumes. Like the costume in Doctor Strange is probably like my favorite Doctor Strange. Like I think it was a perfect. I know they have to make some alterations from the comics, but it was like a real perfect Doctor, because that's the hardest part with comics, is like making turning the books from the pages to make sure they translate well
on the big screen.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was one of those suits they made perfect. And then what I did like in the post credits too is like they added his traditional yellow gloves, which I found.
Yeah. Now what's that for?
Those are like his
from the book.
Yeah, because Doctor Strange doesn't really have hands. Well, like he kind of the gloves are just part of the aesthetic, but they were because it was funny. He had the hand gestures because Steve Ditko is the co-creator of Doctor Strange, with the Spider-Man hand gestures. He also had the hand gestures with Doctor Strange.
Yeah, well, the hand gesture he did there. That's in the first Doctor Strange movie when he says to Dormammu, he goes, "I will end this time loop if you and Casillas and his followers leave Earth forever." And when he says that, he's got his hands in a Spider-Man kind of pose.
Right.
Yeah. So that's from the book then.
Right.
Okay.
So, but although what I did find funny, like I took a look at Infinity War again. And,
you did? Okay,
and,
cool.
In game, I don't know if he wears it in the Doctor Strange too, but I actually do like the yellow gloves. It's kind of weird they kind of took that out.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. It was weird that they did that just for that scene. And now that scene says, okay, since you want to get Loki out of this dimension, out of this universe, let me help you. And he's saying that to Thor. Was Doctor Strange in Ragnarok anywhere?
No, he wasn't. No. It was just like Ragnarok was just Thor, Hulk, and
Asgard.
Asgard, yeah.
Okay, so that was weird. And then of course the other scene is Mordo and Pangborn and stuff. So but okay, so my rating is I would like to give it 9.5 out of 10, but I can't. I'm just going to stick with 9. On a good day I would give it a 10, but objectively I have to be credible, I guess is the word, and leave it at 9. Yeah.
Well, my only critique would probably be like, I didn't like how, I know you said the humor is okay, but sometimes I think Doctor Strange is a character that also takes himself too seriously. Like, I don't want to be too much of a wisecracker.
Well, that's where the arrogance comes in.
Right. Yeah, and then Dormammu, like, I expect a little bit more of like a reddish color scheme, but I didn't really like the whole purplish color scheme like they had.
It seems a little saturated.
Yeah.
I guess Yeah, I expected something more
demonic. Yeah, because he's
like
supposed to,
hellish.
yeah, because he's more of like well, I don't know if you follow DC, because the Teen Titans got this villain named Trigon. Trigon's supposed to be like he's Raven's father in Teen Titans, but he's like the most. He's kind of like the DC version of Dormammu, where he's all powerful. He could manipulate reality, warp bending, all that stuff.
Okay,
but I was just kind of like, I know he's
well in from some of the clips I've seen of Doctor Strange 2, Wanda is all about misdirection. Also, she creates her own world and stuff. And
right.
She gets caught lying at one point, and so then she reveals, like, because I won't give away too much, but she's talking to somebody, and she accidentally gives herself up, and so she goes, okay, so you caught me. So then she reveals the real environment that they're in, because she constructed one to lie to this person. So when she reveals it, that is what I would expect Dormammu's dimension to look like, because it looked like hell, basically.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a little too saturated. It looks like a nightclub in space, basically.
Yes.
That's what that looks like. And then, like I said, the wavy part of his face, that looks, to me, that says math, because like one of the oh my god, I was learning Alias Wavefront back in the 90s, and one of the things I really hate about learning software or UX design, like when I tried to do that a few years ago, is it's like so I pick up a book and I'm trying to learn Alias Wavefront, and Alias Wavefront is the predecessor to Maya, if I'm correct. You're familiar with the Maya software?
Yeah, Maya 3DX.
Exactly.
That's what they do with the 3D effects movies. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm reading this book, and then they're having me open up some window and putting in like values using cosine and tangent, and I'm like, I don't need all that crap, but that's what Dormammu looks like when the waving thing and all that stuff. Because I don't know if you're familiar enough with the animation to know what something looks like when it's keyframed, as opposed to motion capture or something,
right, rotoscoping or something like that.
Because I just saw a trailer for Avatar 2, so when you're seeing the people on water, they're not animating the water by hand.
Well, of course, there's a lot of that is just computer
math. Exactly. So that's what Dormammu looks like. It looks like a bunch of math. It looks like, these guys, like there's some scenes in Pirates of the Caribbean where the entire water is computer generated. So it's amazing, but sometimes that stuff just doesn't look real.
Right. Well, like for the Black Panther movie, like they didn't actually go to Africa. They just went to Atlanta and filmed it in Tyler Perry's. Yeah, like they weren't like that waterfall. It's like that was behind the green room and all that stuff. So
that's one of the criticisms that this guy, I think it was Hill versus Babyface, and he said that I think it was him. He said that everything he was looking at, it's like, okay, I just see a green screen back there. He didn't feel like he was taken to another dimension at all. He just saw like all of them were in sound stages, basically. So, but anyway, 9 out of 10 for me, 8 out of 10 for you, right?
Yep.
Okay, so all right, I think that's it for us. What the plan is now, it may change, but we might do Doctor Strange 2 review on that, and then for sure we're gonna do an animated series called Cyber 6. So now that was Japanese animated but produced by Canadians, is that correct?
It was produced, yeah. So TMS is the studio.
Okay. And that's based in Canada?
Yeah, no, TMS is
Japan.
And Canada produced it because it was actually showcased in 3 different places, like
because Cyber 6 is from Europe, the original.
It's from Argentina.
South America.
Okay. So
Argentina. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll end it here. Thank you for watching this video, and keep an eye out for the next ones. And that's it. Thank you.
Later.